Hi there. We're up to video number 6 in the print collaboration between Anne Van Oppen and Lisa Toth. The last video I showed you how to transfer the image onto a wood block, and I've cut the wood blocks so that I can use them now to add color into the prints. There's the bunny, and I have done the still life. I'm using both sides of the block because we're going to do the still life in multiple printings. And then I have the sheep and the hen, and you can see I've been working on the hen. So I'm going to show you today what I do. And the first thing you've got to do is soak the block in water. So I'm going to soak that block for a little bit, and I use these brushes that are Japanese stencil brushes, and they work great. I love these. I got them at McLean's. It's the same place I get the wood blocks, and they come in the teeny weeny brush all the way up to pretty big brushes. But for what we're doing today, I'm going to use the small brushes, and they go in the water and get soaked as well. This helps keep the brushes from losing the hair. Okay, while the brushes and the wood block are soaking, I'm going to show you about Japanese paper. When I print the color, I print onto a Japanese paper that I've bought this huge roll of at Hiromi Paper in Santa Monica. They're a great source for Japanese papers. And Japanese paper is really strong stuff. So the way to tear this paper is this is the way I do it. I'm on the back side of it. There's a rough side and a smooth side. The rough side is the back side. The smooth side is the printing side. And I fold the paper on my little mark. I use this burnishing tool or folding tool. It's a piece of bone, ox bone, I think. And you can get this at various paper companies. And you want to fold this paper 3 times and give it the pressure on each side each time. Once you've done your 3rd fold and creasing, you use a dampened sponge. And I just run the sponge right along the crease a couple times. This just gets the paper damp enough so that you can tear it. And I hold it very carefully, keep my finger close to where my fold is, and the paper tears beautifully. Okay, when woodblock printing onto Japanese paper, you want to dampen the paper before you print. So the way I do this is I just spritz it on both sides, and then I place it down on top of this plastic. I'm going to do about 5 sheets so you guys get an idea of how you do this. Once the paper's wet, it really wants to stick to itself. And that's okay. It's not a problem. You just stagger these sheets a little bit, and then you're able to grab them. I'm working on 4 by 4 inch square. Oh no, a little bit bigger. I think it's 5 by 5 because the plate is 4 by 4 for the hen. And just stagger them. I'm placing them so that the printing side is up. You can still tell even when the paper's wet which side you print on. Okay, and once you have your paper dampened, you can stick it. What I've done is stick it inside a plastic little holding plate. And I've cut both sides of this Ziploc bag. Makes it easier to get the paper in and out. And now it's going to sit here and absorb the moisture for about 10 minutes. So we'll come back and I'll set up the printing, and then we'll get to printing on the Mokuhanga style, okay? We'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, the block has been soaking for quite a while. It's nice and damp, and the brushes are nice and damp. So we're going to start. I'm going to show you how I ink this thing up. I made up this palette yesterday because I was playing around with this and getting started, and to keep the inks wet, I just covered them with this plastic. And I'm going to take it all the way off and throw it away. And the ink that I'm using here is Charbonnel Aqua Wash. This is actually an etching ink, but I have not been able to etch successfully with it, and I love it for this method. It's water-based, and it's very easy to use. So to get started, I've got my colors and my little rainbow palette here, and I take the smallest brush. I'm going to ink up the yellow in the beak, and you just sort of use this like a stippling. I very gently brush her little beak in, and I put the color where I want it in the legs, and I save that brush for the next one. Now, this is the sandy ground she's standing on, and you just sort of gently paint the color onto the block. And you can see, I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the video, but you can see when you've got the color on there. And I tend to try to apply the color the same way, you know, the same order, so that I don't forget one. So once the plate or the block gets the ink on it and it gets stained, it's sometimes hard to tell where you've put ink and where you haven't, or you forget to put it someplace. So, especially when I'm using this many colors. And I love this method because you can use a lot of color, and then you can, but these brushes work so beautifully for blending. If you get a little bit of ink where you don't want it on the side and you don't want the paper to pick it up, you can blot it back away. So this is what I was doing yesterday, and I did it ahead of time because once this is done, you have to allow this to completely dry. You don't want it to bleed when you're etching. So you can see I can kind of blend these colors. If I get something a little too much somewhere, I can go back and fix it. There we go. I got a little vermilion. Of this wonderful fuchsia color is called geranium from these guys. I just love it. So there we go. We're just about done. To finish off, I put just a ticky of yellow. I gotta get a little bit more on there on her head. This is pretty wet, but I think that'll be okay. Then I place the block, goes onto this little registration thing I've made. And this thing is pretty cool. I just used a couple of stretcher bars, and it's on a hinge, and you'll see why in just a minute. And then I have this tape here. It's out 1/2 inch from the edge of the block. And this helps me to register this little print with the etching when I go through the actual print out on the etching press, which I'm going to show you later. I take a piece of my dampened paper out of this little dampened area, and I put it printing side down. I try to do this exactly the same each time. It helps, but it's, you know, it's tough to do it exactly the same each time. I put a piece of tracing paper on top, which helps the baren to move a little more easily. This is a Japanese baren. I also bought this at McLean's. The paper's still pretty wet, so I hope it doesn't run too much. And you gently use the baren, and we've got a nice little print of a chicken. Okay, now I printed some of these yesterday, so I'm going to show you how I put the two together on the etching press with chine colle, and we will have a final print. Very exciting. We'll be right back.